We are making a mascot, sketching it out, shaping its look, and bringing it to life with animation. A little character with a big personality ready to move, emote, and represent a brand. Every brand has a voice, but sometimes a voice needs a face, something a bit more alive than a logo. That's where mascots come in. They are not just for sports team or cereal boxes anymore. YouTube channels, apps, creators, communities, everyone's got their own little ambassador nowadays. So it's the friendly face that shows up when your brand says hi. In this video, I'm taking you behind the scenes from a blank page to a fully animated mascot. We will design it, bring it to life with animation, and explore the full process along the way. It's a little mascot for an indie film streaming app and a community around it. For this project, I will be using Photoshop, or you can use Krita or any other sketching app that you prefer, and we'll wrap it up with short 2D frame-by-frame animation using Grease Pencil inside Blender 3D to complete our presentation. Along the way, we'll also talk about how tools like Milanote help us untangle the chaos of creative thinking. Milanote is also today's sponsor, and if you have been following this channel, you already know how much I rely on Milanote in my everyday creative process, from organizing ideas to planning entire projects. I'm more of a visual thinker. My inspiration doesn't come from just one place. It comes from sketches, photographs, written notes, 3D models, videos, all at once. That's why I like using Milanote. It is essentially a tool for organizing all sort of creative projects and is like a big canvas that supports a vast range of media. Instead of having ideas scattered across all the folders, apps, and screenshots, I drop everything into one place where I can write, doodle, build color palettes, play reference videos, embed 3D models, and keep my visual inspiration all side by side. It's honestly one of the best ways to start brainstorming. Milanote is available for free with no time limit, so sign up for free Milanote account using the link in the description. We actually explored Milanote in depth in our previous series about title sequence design. That's in the playlist section if you want to dive deeper. Feel free to check it out later. This project isn't entirely hypothetical. It's inspired by something I worked on some time ago, a mascot design for a channel branding campaign. For this video, I have reimagined and simplified the details for educational purpose. The original process involved a lot more back and forth as real-world projects usually do, but the overall structure and the creative flow remains the same. So while this version is tweaked for teaching, it still reflects the kind of thinking and steps I follow on actual client work. My first step is always to consolidate everything. All the inputs that I've got from client plus my own thoughts during initial design briefing. I just create a new board in Milanote, name it after the project, and inside that I make few sub-boards for different parts of the project. This is where I drop in everything: PDF, pitch decks, notes scribbled in my diary, reference images, reference videos, doodles, anything I've gathered so far. Then I go through these PDF, meeting notes and emails and extract only what's relevant for brainstorming, lay it out in a clean, readable way so I can actually think with it. On the left, you have got all the tools, text, tables, images, videos, documents, drawing tools, and plenty more stuff. You can use them however you want to shape your board visually. There are also plenty of built-in templates available when you create a new board for things like storyboard, mood board, project planning, for a variety of different creative projects needs. These presets set things up for you with just one click so you can jump straight into the work. Once my initial board is set up, I usually invite my client and my teammates depending on the project scale so we can collaboratively work. It really helps to keep everything in one place. So from the inputs that I've got, here's what stands out. The character needs to be simple, clean silhouette like popcorn tub with limbs for expressive movement, but no complex shapes or break in the form. The goal is to strike that balance, something that has just enough personality but also leaves room for interpretation. So that way it can be easily redressed, adapted for different moods, or even used in slapstick style animation. But even with these initial directions, I don't overthink it yet. At this stage, I just draw freely. Even if some ideas are way off the brief, that's intentional. These early sketches are just for me, not for the client. I'm just exploring as many shapes and personalities as I can pull out of the concept. The goal isn't to be right, it's to be playful. While sketching, I was going through few of the references that I've gathered, and there are a few things I really wanted to hold on to, like the classic red color and the striped packaging, anything that makes it unmistakably a popcorn tub at first glance. Even with all the abstraction and stylization, I didn't want to lose the core identity. Somewhere in the process, I started tracing over photos of actual popcorn. The shapes were messy, organic and unpredictable, but I kept spotting interesting silhouettes in them, so I just wanted to try out, and I thought maybe there's a mascot hiding in there. I did a bunch of sketches, most of them didn't make past the first glance, but that's still useful. I always find it as helpful to know what doesn't work. It at least narrows down the direction and I start to see where the character might be hiding. So from that pile, I picked up a few that felt promising, either working already or at least had something that I could rework. So this part is always tricky. You are balancing between your own instincts and where the client is leaning, and it's really a clear cut. So you go back, get the third opinion, revisit what the brief actually meant, not what it said, and keep tweaking. So at one point, with the straight sides of the tub and limbs sticking out, the character started to feel a bit basic, almost too forced, like I was just dressing it up rather than creating a personality. So I stripped it back, I removed the legs entirely and thought maybe I don't need to show them literally. Just a hint, a suggestion, kind of like how we used to animate rice sack in animation exercises. Like no limbs, but they still moved like they had weight and intent. I also realized the body doesn't have to be perfectly straight. A slight curve, a little bend in the form, and suddenly it starts feeling more posed, more alive, like there's some anatomy under there even if it's imaginary. At some point, these stripes started reminding me of something else. Performers, clowns, even circus costumes. This kind of theatrical energy to them. So I figured maybe I can treat the character that way. Not just a popcorn tub with limbs, but something that carries a bit more performance presence. So once you are into the process, you start seeing different possibilities. I tried splitting the body into two zones. The bottom half could feel like pants and the top like a face. Not literally, just enough to suggest it. And that small shift made the form feel more character-like and less like a packaged object. Funny enough, it started to remind me a bit of character like Obelix. It felt like character finally had some personality and not just a decorated tub, something that could actually perform. So after the second round of sketches, I arrived at a version that felt right. It checked most of the boxes. Fun to animate, easy to redress for events and adaptable for both 2D and 3D workflows. We got some feedback and decided to explore this direction further. So I started cutting away anything that made animation unnecessarily complex, like over-detailed corn shapes and overly defined glasses. And I also was trying out different proportions, thinking back to those classical animation exercises with rice sacks again. That simple shape didn't even have limbs, but with just corners it felt like it did. So that was the vibe I was after for fluidity in animation. So I made the mascot shorter, rounder, a bit more plump and roly-poly. It just felt more alive. The legs, barely there. Just suggested at the base of the tub with these little corners and enough to sell the idea without overcomplicating the form. At the same time, I was also thinking maybe the popcorns themselves could be used as little animation elements, like popping off, bouncing around. So I explored that in one of the sketches, treating the popcorn as a fun little secondary character. Maybe not always present, but they could show up occasionally to add some surprise in animations. Before locking it in, I started sketching some poses, just stills, nothing fancy, to test how this round-bodied, stubby-limbed character could move. It's not that I had any doubt because I have animated similar forms before, but I still wanted to see how this personality will look with different props and animations. So while sketching, I was just trying out different costumes, props, different scenarios, and so maybe for romantic or heartbreak scenes, I could use popcorn instead of a heart. Right here in this sketch, I have this popcorn shaped heart is breaking. Maybe for a star rating, instead of showing 5 stars, we could show popcorns. So here in technical glitch error page, we could show this character lying down flat on the floor, and the secondary character instead can carry a message board right here, maybe error 404 or be right back. Like right here, one of the animation idea here actually reminded me of the character from Pixar Inside Out movie. So I thought, what if when the mascot gets angry, the kernels around its head start floating and then suddenly pop into popcorns from the heat of the moment before falling back in. Just a small touch, but it could really add to its personality, and I was finding ways to use these secondary elements as much as possible. Actually, the more I pushed it, the funnier it got, and that's when I knew it had potential. It's often hard to judge a character just by a static sketch, but once you pose it, see it slouch, stretch, react, put it into different scenarios, you start seeing how it can perform. So similarly, plenty of different ideas start popping into my head. I noted them down and tried a few out using superhero capes, different costumes, props, expressions, and eventually this is the sketch I landed on. But even at this moment, I'm pretty sure there is still room for improvement. I just need to maybe sketch out few more poses, maybe try out some animations to see its limitation and what all can make this character fun for animation and further improve its design. Alongside the stills, I also wanted to show the client a quick animation. Nothing polished, just a rough mock-up to convey personality. I'm using Blender's grease pencil for this. The goal isn't a finished piece, just enough to add some life to this presentation. I started with just the volume, no details, no stripes, no accessories, like animating a rice sack again. If the flow feels right here, I'll take it further. Here I'm just trying to get the poses and the form and the flow of the animation right in very rough strokes. Most importantly, I'm just trying to see whether these small limbs can actually form poses or not. That's my main concern. After a few hours, here's where the rough animation landed. So here are the rough keys, the poses seem to be working, and I added a few more in betweens to smooth it out. Still just one layer, rough blue pencil. And by the way, I'm not showing the entire animation process in real time here, it just been sped up quite a bit so we can stay focused on the design flow. But don't worry, right after this video I'll be posting a separate one with a full time lapse of the entire animation process without any editing. It won't have any commentary, but you get to see the full process. So if you are into animation and want to see how it came together, definitely check that out. I'll post the link in the description. My point of jumping into animation at this stage, even before the character is fully finalized, so to see how well it can perform and how well it fits in the style of animation we are going for. A moving character is way more relatable and easier to judge than a still sketch. Just trying to add as much as I can to really sell the idea, or at least help the client see it the way I see it. Grease pencil is such a powerful hybrid tool, and I can paint strokes, treat them like vectors, even sculpt shapes. There's always some way to make things work faster or cleaner. I think grease pencil is most underrated part of Blender. I really like it for 2D animations, and I really hope we get to see more development in this part of Blender. It has a bit of unconventional workflow, but once you get the hang of it, it starts to make sense. So once I was confident in the movement, I started cleaning it up with new layer on the top. With a curve tool, it's pretty easy to place strokes, even if you're not using stylus or any tablet. The cleanup process in grease pencil is pretty easy. You can just place 2 points of the strokes, smooth out in between, and extrude further points if you want. You can also use taper at the start and end of the stroke to make it look a bit more hand-drawn and natural. For me, the best part about using grease pencil in Blender is how naturally it fits into the existing workflow. Like, everything feels familiar. If you already know sculpting, texture painting, or a bit of modeling in Blender, you'll feel right at home. The tools behave the same way, the shortcuts are familiar, and there is almost nothing new to learn. Just start drawing if you know what you're doing, and if you know the way around the rest of the workspace in Blender, your transition is going to be much more smoother than having to jump on a completely different 2D animation software. You can tweak stroke vertices like mesh objects, or even sculpt your drawings using familiar brushes like grab brush, smooth brush, the way you handle sculpting, and it saves a ton of time compared to jumping back and forth between 2D and 3D software for anything hybrid. Everything stays inside Blender, fully integrated. And the fact that you can draw directly in 3D space is a game changer. For example, you can sketch a background with actual depth and have character interact with it in perspective rather than faking 3D background in a 2D layout. And even for cleanup process, it's super efficient. Instead of redrawing the same stroke over and over, frame by frame, I can just duplicate the previous keyframe and use sculpting tools for repositioning or for adjusting it a bit. And combined with onion skinning, it makes in-betweening so much easier. I use grease pencil a lot for storyboarding and animatics actually. I have done a bit of 2D animation with it, but I haven't pushed it yet on a fully packed, heavy-duty 2D animation project. But from what I've seen so far, grease pencil feels rock solid, and I'm pretty confident it can handle a lot more. After the cleanup of animation, I added a few extra holes at the start and end, and with the lines locked in, I created a few basic materials and filled out the colors. It's only 1 second animation and very few colors, so just took the paint bucket and started clicking on multiple frames. It hardly took few minutes to color this animation. While coloring, I've tried to keep everything on separate layers so that I can use it for compositing later on. And here's the final version of the test animation. But like I said before, I also wanted to try out a different shaded version. So for that, I exported every layer of animation as a separate part and took it to After Effects. So here I'm exporting every different layer as a PNG sequence from Blender to After Effects so I can use it for compositing. And in After Effects, I did a bit of compositing, nothing much, but just a bit of gradation, general direction of lighting, like a bit of shadow, and just to make the overall form feel a bit more rounder. For most of this process, I just made a duplicate for every part of this character and made another version, a slightly darker or slightly lighter version. And then by using mask tool, I'm just creating a bit of transition. So there's a bit of directional light, illusion of the directional light, and a bit of reflection in the glass. So pretty basic stuff. I wouldn't say there's much going on here. For presentation's sake, I've added a bit of shadow. And that's about it. And here's the final version of test animation, the flat version and the slightly more shaded version. So this is what I shared with the client. So here's our character. So this is where we have arrived. Is this the final design? Maybe, or maybe not. That really depends on who you are making it for. If it's for yourself, this might be enough. You know what you want, you know what feels right. Reading your own thoughts is always easier than trying to decode someone else's design brief. But if it's for a client, there's probably more to do. A few more rounds of refinement, feedback to really make it land for the brand. That's just how it is. Explore, shape, rethink, look at it from different angles, from the animation point of view, personality, shareability, likability, and slowly carve out something that works. And honestly, even after the launch, things evolve. Mascots, logos, characters, they grow over time. So if you're designing this mascot for yourself, your own brand, put it out there, do a soft launch and let it breathe, let the community react, let the audience see this character, and don't be afraid to revisit the design later. And if you're making this mascot for your own channel, your own brand or creative space, think about how you want it to walk beside your identity. Like how it talks, how it feels, and how it represents you when you're not explaining things yourself. And ask people, friends, viewers, even non-designers. Some of the best feedback comes from the most unexpected places. And if you haven't already, definitely check out Milanote. It's been a huge part of my creative workflow for a long time now, and it makes organizing both creative and personal projects incredibly easy. Milanote is available for free with no time limit, so sign up for free Milanote account using the link in the description. And there's also a link to another series titled Sequence Design, which I mentioned earlier, in which we used Milanote in great depth. So if you are into more behind the scenes process, you might enjoy that as well. So if you enjoyed this breakdown or want to see more creative process videos about animations, character design or storytelling, let me know in the comment section. It really helps me shape what comes next. You'll also find the links to full-length premium courses on Gumroad and Superhive. I recently launched a few courses. Be sure to check it out. And also on this channel, do check out our playlist section. There are a bunch of courses which are freely available to watch. We have covered several topics in depth and I'm sure you're going to like it. So thanks for tuning in. I'll be posting the animation time-lapse video right after this. Do check it out. So this is Ram from CrossMind Studio. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Have a great day.